I walked into the room and immediately realized that something was wrong. A long table, a white tablecloth, candles. Everything looked like something out of a magazine. Only there was no place for me, no name card, no empty chair. Not even one of those wobbly folding chairs they pull out for extra guests. Courtney's sister, Marlene, spotted me from across the room and didn't even try to hide her smile. She raised her champagne flute like she was toasting me, then leaned over to someone at the head table and said, loud enough for half the room to hear, "Only save spots for family that matters." That hit harder than I expected. Not because I didn't see it coming. Marlene had always looked at me like I was chewing with my mouth open, but because Courtney just stood there, pretending not to hear. I leaned in. "So, no seat for me?" Courtney shrugged. "It's tight. Don't make a big deal." Tight? There were 3 empty chairs between her cousin Trey and some finance guy from Connecticut. I could have sat on the damn buffet table if they wanted me out of the frame that bad. I held her gaze a second longer, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. I smiled, nodded like it was all fine, then turned and walked toward the restroom. Or, at least, that's what it looked like. What I really did was start the clock. Quick note: before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I passed the restroom, took a lap around the hallway, and returned just as the toasts were starting. Marlene stood at the front with a mic in one hand and that diamond on her finger flashing like it needed its own spotlight. "To love," she said, eyes glassy, fake sincerity dripping like syrup. "To partnerships that last, and to knowing your worth, especially when vultures circle." I caught Russell Drake's eye across the room. He raised an eyebrow. "And thank you to the man who funded tonight's gala. Mr. Russell Drake himself," Marlene said, gesturing toward him with her glass. "I hear he's made a fortune in logistics. Bald heads and bankrupt companies. Quite the business model, huh?" Laughter, nervous, scattered. One guy actually choked on his wine. Russell didn't flinch, but his daughter Jen, sitting 2 tables over, froze. The color drained from Carl Whitmore's face like someone yanked the plug. That moment told me everything I needed to know. Marlene hadn't just insulted some random guest. She'd publicly humiliated the one man her father spent 15 years trying to bring into the fold, and all I had to do was wait. Russell didn't laugh, didn't blink. He just sat back in his chair, fingers steepled, watching Marlene like a man clocking wind direction before he lights a match. Carl Whitmore shot to his feet so fast his chair nearly tipped. "Let's give my daughter a hand," he called, forcing a wide, brittle smile as he led the applause. "Always bringing the laughs, huh?" Russell clapped twice, slow, hollow, then turned to his daughter, Jen, and said something I couldn't hear. She looked pissed. Marlene took a bow like she'd just crushed a Netflix special, then floated back to her seat, completely unaware she'd just cracked the floor under her own damn feet. Courtney nudged me. "Don't start." I didn't even look at her. I was already watching the real story unfold at the other end of the table. Carl leaning in to say something to Russell, who smiled that polite corporate smile people use right before they screw you. Dinner dragged. Chicken breast, asparagus, empty talk. I didn't touch my food, just waited for a window. Once they cut the cake, I slipped out to the patio for some air. Jen followed a few minutes later, heels in hand, cigarette behind one ear. "You see that?" she asked, lighting up. I nodded. "Russell's not letting that slide." She blew out a long stream of smoke. "He shouldn't. Carl's been leaning on him for months. Logistics, fleet operations, personnel. It's all held together by Drake Holdings." She paused. "Or was." I turned toward her. "Your white tents, champagne tables, photographers, a damn movie set for a family empire that looked shiny from the outside, but was hollow as hell inside." "She's trying to climb the ladder," I said, "and just insulted the guy holding the bottom rung." Jen nodded. "Carl's desperate. He sunk everything into this expansion. The new warehouse systems, digitizing operations. It's all being paid for on credit. Russell's credit. And that toast?" She dragged hard on the cigarette. "That was a suicide note." I didn't say anything for a while, just watched the servers clear empty glasses off the tables. Inside, people were dancing, laughing, totally clueless. Jen looked over. "You're quiet. Just listening? Planning?" I gave her a little shrug. "What would I plan?" She laughed. "Right." I let it hang for a second. Then I turned back toward the ballroom doors. "You staying long?" "Long enough to watch Carl sweat. Then I'm ghosting." We walked in together. Music pumping, lights low. Courtney on the dance floor with Marlene like none of it mattered. Jen disappeared back to her table. I slid into my seat, folded my napkin across my lap, and smiled like I gave a damn about dessert. Inside, though, I'd already moved 3 steps ahead. The next weekend, Carl pulled out every trick in the playbook. Private valet, shrimp towers, a goddamn live quartet on the East Lawn. This wasn't just an engagement party, it was a statement. A business pitch in disguise. Their estate in Greenwich looked like it was built to impress Wall Street. Flags on the gate, white tents stretched across the lawn, ice sculptures melting under October sun. I got there early enough to see them still testing lights on the red carpet. No exaggeration, a literal red carpet. Marlene made her grand entrance 30 minutes late, wearing a floor-length silver dress and a diamond the size of a grape, 10 carats easy, and just subtle enough to say, "Look how expensive I am," without screaming it. She posed at the top of the steps like she was waiting for a camera flash, one hand resting lightly on Alexander Hartman's chest like he was a trophy. That guy, tall, good-looking, probably had a trust fund nickname like Trip or Skip, barely looked alive. He grinned on cue, shook hands, kissed cheeks, but behind his eyes, nothing. I'd seen paperweights with more engagement. I kept my distance, stuck near the open bar. That's where I first spotted Martin Hartman, Alexander's father. Charcoal suit, 3 shades too dark for the afternoon sun, damp patches spreading under his arms. His tie was tight, jaw clenched. He leaned down to whisper something to a younger guy in a headset. "Keep the books quiet," Martin said. The aide nodded, peeled off fast. Martin turned, saw me watching, and gave me the type of nod people give when they're not sure if they've just been overheard. I sipped my bourbon and moved on. The photographers swarmed Marlene and Alexander, as Carl did his usual rounds. Chest out, handshake firm, smile sharp. It was all business. The Hartmans were there, sure, but so were investors, regional execs, even the mayor of Stamford. If Carl could have worked in a ribbon cutting, he would have. Jen found me near the koi pond behind the garden wall. Her hair was up, simple dress, no jewelry, total opposite of Marlene's human chandelier look. "You saw Martin?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "He's sweating through 5 grand of wool." She gave me a dry smile. "He should be. My dad's done. This time it's real." I kept my face blank, but inside, everything clicked. "Drake's pulling out?" I asked. Jen nodded. "He's out. Final papers are getting drafted Monday. He waited long enough. Carl's over-leveraged, and this merger isn't going to land. My dad doesn't bet on sinking ships." I scanned the tent behind us. Carl laughing too loud. Marlene clinking glasses with some New York Times guy like she's royalty. Alexander staring at his phone like he couldn't care less. "You told anyone?" I asked. Jen shook her head. "Nope, you're the first. I figured you'd know what to do with it." I nodded, slow. "Yeah, I do." That was all we said. She gave my arm a squeeze and disappeared into the crowd. I spent the rest of the night floating, shaking hands, smiling, cracking a few jokes. But I was barely there. I was watching the seams. Carl didn't know the foundation was gone. Marlene was too busy pretending she was the second coming of Jackie O and Alexander. That guy looked like he'd rather be golfing on Mars. I left early, told Courtney I had a headache. She stayed behind, said her sister needed the support. I didn't argue. Just got in my car, drove back to the city, and laid in bed with the lights off, listening to the radiator hiss. Courtney came in after midnight, heels in one hand, makeup faded, mood quiet. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, rolling over. She slid under the covers and curled up next to me. I stared at the ceiling, mind racing. Drake was out. The merger was dead. The numbers were cooked. And Marlene had no idea she'd just staged a party to celebrate the beginning of her own free fall. I didn't need to lift a finger. I just had to be awake when it hit. The bedroom was dead quiet except for the soft rattle of pipes in the walls. I was wide awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Jen, midnight sharp. I slipped out of bed without waking Courtney and stepped into the hallway. "Yeah," I answered, voice low. "It's happening," she said. No small talk. Just straight to it. "Dad's unloading every Whitmore share by 2 p.m. tomorrow." I rubbed a hand down my face, processing. "Full dump?" "Clean break," she said. "It'll hit the market hard. Everyone's gonna notice." My heart didn't race. It slowed. like I just dropped into that calm space right before a fight. I nodded to myself. Thanks for the heads up. She hesitated. You sure you want to be in the room when it drops? I looked back toward the bedroom, the crack of light under the door. Courtney's silhouette still curled under the covers. Yeah, I said. I want front row. She hung up without another word. I stood there for a second in the hallway, phone still in my hand. Then I opened a new message and typed, "What if you moved that timeline up?" I sent it straight to Russell Drake. No subject, no greeting, just that. 30 seconds later, 3 dots appeared. Then, I thought you'd never ask. I didn't need to explain. He didn't need to ask questions. That's the thing about certain people, the dangerous ones. They don't waste time with clarification. You give them a match, they know where the gasoline is. My next message, during the rehearsal dinner, max visibility, another pause. Then, perfect. That was it. Deal sealed in 4 lines of text. I walked back into the bedroom, but didn't climb into bed. I sat in the corner chair, elbows on my knees, eyes on the city lights through the window. The hum in my chest was steady now, like an engine warming up. Marlene didn't know what she'd started with that toast. Carl didn't know what he was walking into tomorrow. And Courtney, well, she'd chosen her side a long time ago. I'd play my role, smile, nod, eat the chicken. But when the room started spinning and the walls started shaking, I wouldn't flinch. Everything about the rehearsal dinner screamed control, spotless linen, hand-painted name cards, crystal that probably had a stupid backstory. The Whitmores didn't throw parties. They staged performances. It was held at the Garden Club in Rye, old money place with ivy-covered walls and servers who probably had MBAs. I walked in at 7:30, right on schedule, and the whole thing looked like a magazine spread. Courtney barely glanced at me as I joined her. She was in full autopilot mode, wine in one hand, fake laughing at something Marlene's PR handler said. The head table stretched across the front, all eyes pointed toward the podium like it was a throne. Everyone was in position, but no one realized the building was already rigged. Carl took the mic at exactly 7:58. The room went quiet. He grinned like a man who thought he'd won. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight," he said, hands spread like some kind of emperor. "This weekend isn't just about a wedding. It's about a future, a legacy, 2 families becoming one." He paused, let it breathe. This merger, with the Hartman Group, isn't just strategic, it's transformational. Our logistics division, powered by partnerships like Drake Holdings, is the cornerstone. Buzz, 1 phone, then 3, then 15. Heads turned, thumbs moved. The whole left side of the room lit up in screens. A murmur started, soft at first, then building. I looked at my watch, 8 p.m. on the dot, right on schedule. Carl faltered. I know we're all excited for what's ahead." Buzz, buzz. This time louder. People were standing now, talking in low voices. One guy from the finance team dropped his wine. I turned my head slowly, like a man at a symphony. Martin Hartman stood up, face pale, phone still in his hand. "Carl," he barked. "The stock's in free fall." Silence. Carl blinked. "What?" "Drake pulled out," Martin said, eyes wide. "All of it! It's everywhere. Forbes, Bloomberg." He spun around to his son. "Alexander, did you know about this?" Alexander looked stunned. For once, the guy actually reacted. "No, this isn't me." Carl's face dropped. No fake smile this time. Just pure, exposed panic. "Sit down," he hissed toward Martin. "Let me handle it." But Martin wasn't done. "Handle what? There's no merger without Drake's backing." The funding was contingent on his logistics arm. That was the deal. Now voices were rising all around us. People grabbing coats, whispering into phones. The photographers were backing up, lenses down. The PR girl was almost crying. Then came the real show. Marlene stood up, eyes wide, and whipped toward my wife. "Courtney," she hissed. "Do something." Courtney froze. "What do you mean?" "Talk to him," Marlene pointed at me. "Fix this. You let him in. Now everything's crashing." I raised my wine glass. Didn't say a word. Marlene's voice cracked. "You smug little," but she didn't finish it, because right then Carl slammed both fists down on the table. "Everybody shut up!" A few people gasped. One of the Hartman assistants ducked behind a column. Carl's face was beet red, jaw clenched so tight I thought he'd crack a molar. "This is a temporary dip," he growled. The deal is still happening. Drake is bluffing. It's posturing. Martin Hartman threw his napkin down. Pull your head out of your ass. It's over. Carl tried to speak again, but choked on the words. His phone lit up in his hand. Another alert, another drop. His net worth probably lost 6 zeros since he walked up to the mic. The room was chaos now. People filing out, some staying just to watch. I didn't move. I sipped my wine, eyes locked with Marlene, who was still standing there like she was waiting for someone to yell, "Cut." But there was no director, no fix, just the wreckage. And I was right where I planned to be, center seat, best view in the house. The next morning, the florist didn't even show up. No calls, no truck, no flowers. By 10 a.m., the wedding was officially off. The catering crew packed up in silence. A few distant relatives shuffled out, dragging roller bags and muttering about refunds. Someone canceled the photographer. The band, freeze the trades! Find me the clause. No, you listen to me. I heard it all from the hallway while sipping black coffee out of a mug that said, "Family first." I nearly laughed. Upstairs, Marlene was crying. Loud, sloppy, ugly crying. The kind you can't fake. She was still in her silk robe, makeup smeared, kneeling in the middle of her room next to the dress, the custom Dior she'd flown to Paris for. It was hanging limp on the back of the closet door like a ghost. Courtney stood in the doorway, frozen, just staring at her sister like she didn't recognize her. "She's not even crying about Alexander," Courtney said. I leaned against the railing. "Nope, it's the dress, the guests, the moment." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. "She's always been like this," Courtney whispered. But this time, there was no defense in her voice. I stayed quiet. Let her sit in that realization. That wasn't my lesson to deliver. Downstairs, Carl's voice exploded again. "No one told me Russell was planning to dump shares. That's material information. Someone's getting sued." Didn't matter. Word was out. And worse, it was true. By noon, we got confirmation. Every major Whitmore asset had been tied up in the merger. The new warehouse lease, the overseas expansion, the debt restructuring. It was all built on projected value. Projected. With Drake Holdings out, that value evaporated overnight. Then came the real punch. The SEC was looking into insider manipulation. An anonymous tip, not mine, but someone smart, flagged unusual trading patterns. Half of Carl's executive team lawyered up before lunch. The private jet, grounded and repossessed before sunset. The Manhattan penthouse, quietly listed, off-market, discreet, but not discreet enough. Courtney sat on the porch swing out back, phone off, eyes distant. For once, she didn't say a word, didn't defend Marlene, didn't explain Carl's stress. Just sat there with her jaw locked, watching the landscapers carry flower boxes back to their trucks. Marlene found me that night, cornered me in the hallway outside the guest wing. Her face was puffy, hair undone, voice raw. "You happy now?" I looked at her, really looked. This was a woman who thought power came from the spotlight, who thought being loud, shiny, sharp got you to the top. She thought humiliation was a weapon you could throw around without ever getting hit back. Now she was surrounded by smoke and broken glass, and she was finally asking the questions she should have asked years ago. I didn't say a word, didn't nod, didn't blink, just walked past her. She didn't follow. The porch swing creaked once behind me, then stopped. I didn't turn around, just walked down the path, out through the gates, and left the Whitmore estate behind. 3 weeks later, Courtney and I moved into a brownstone in Brooklyn. Nothing flashy, 2 floors, brick, old creaky steps. But it was ours. No house manager, no gated driveway, no marble-floored foyer echoing with tension. Just a chipped mailbox and a street where the neighbors actually knew each other's names. I fixed the screen door myself the first night. Courtney made pasta from a box. We sat on the floor with plates in our laps and ate in silence. Not cold silence, just stillness, peace. That Thursday, Carl showed up. No car service, no driver. Just him in a button-down shirt, sleeves rolled, carrying a bottle of mid-shelf wine, like he'd picked it up from a gas station on the way over. He looked older, like someone had finally hit pause on the tanning bed and taught him what real stress felt like. I opened the door, but didn't say anything. "I misjudged you," he said. I waited. "You didn't take anything from me. You just Let it happen. He looked down at the bottle, then back up. That's harder, somehow. I stepped aside. You here to talk or drop that off and leave? He chuckled once. Just needed to say it. That's all. I didn't gloat, didn't push. Let him speak and walk off on his own. He did, quietly. A few days later, a package showed up. No note at first. Just a box. Inside was a vintage Longines watch, sleek black leather strap, polished to hell. The note was folded under the lid. For a man who understands timing. RD. I stared at it for a long second, then closed the box and placed it in my top drawer, right next to my passport, and a photograph of my dad I hadn't looked at in years. That weekend, I had lunch with Jen at a spot in Soho. No cameras, no handlers, just two people who'd lived through the same storm and didn't need to explain the wreckage. Halfway through her iced tea, she reached into her purse and pulled out a pen in a velvet case. This was on my dad's desk the day he walked away from the Whitmores, she said. I opened it. Solid weight, gold trim, serious pen. Long game recognizes long game, she added. I nodded, tucked it into my jacket pocket, and didn't say much else. I didn't need headlines or thank yous, didn't need Marlene's apology or Carl's approval. I just needed this stillness, this new rhythm that wasn't built on power or pretending. I had peace, and I planned on keeping it. Jen brought it up over coffee one morning. Plain bagels, no cameras, no strategy talk, just a conversation that actually felt real. You ever think about starting something of your own? She asked. I shrugged. Used to, back when I thought I needed permission. You don't, she said, and you've already proved you know how to spot cracks before they spread. I raised an eyebrow. You offering something? She sipped her coffee, gave me a look. I'm offering a blank check and a clean start. You and Courtney. You set the tone, I back it. It was the first offer in years that didn't feel like a trap. Courtney and I talked that night. No tension, no agenda. Just the two of us at the kitchen table with takeout cartons and a notepad. She said, what would we even call it? I stared at the notepad for a second, then wrote 2 words in block letters. Iron Ridge Partners. Solid, unshakable, not flashy, anchored. The next morning, we said yes. The firm came together fast. We brought on a few people we actually trusted. Not just resume fluff or name droppers, but the kind of folks who would admit when they didn't know something and weren't afraid to ask smart questions. We kept the office small, on purpose. Exposed brick, 1 floor, no receptionist in a pencil skirt greeting people like it was a country club. Just sharp minds, straight answers, and actual results. No backdoor deals, no inflated projections, no Marlenes. Our motto was simple: real decisions, real consequences. That shut half the phonies out before they even got past the lobby. Business picked up fast, word traveled. The same people who used to treat me like a bench warmer were now sliding into my inbox asking for 10 minutes. Most of them didn't even get one. Carl showed up a few months in, not in a town car, not in a suit, just jeans and a windbreaker, holding a tablet and a sandwich in a paper bag. I'm starting over, he said, out of the spare room, no staff, no bluffing. I gave him a nod. Good, he smiled, but it was different now, smaller, real. Then he turned and walked off. No sales pitch, no ask. Just a man who finally understood what earning something felt like. The work was good, clean. Our names started showing up on the right radars. Not because we were loud, but because we were right. Quiet wins stacking slow. Then one morning, I opened the mail and stopped cold. 1 envelope, no return address, no handwriting. Inside was a postcard. It was glossy, high-res, black and white. Marlene, mid-toast, mouth open, mic in hand, eyes on the room, right before the drop, right before it all caved in. There was no note, nothing written, just the image. I stared at it for a long minute. Then I flipped it over, blank. She knew. She didn't need to say anything, just like I hadn't said anything when she asked if I was happy. This was her answer, her acknowledgement. She knew exactly who flipped the lights off that night, and that I hadn't needed to raise my voice, or a finger, or even my heart rate. I slipped the postcard into my desk drawer and shut it gently. Didn't smile, didn't gloat, just got back to work. A year later, Jen invited us to dinner, rooftop place in Tribeca. Quiet, upscale, no press, just close friends. She was CEO now. Drake Holdings hadn't skipped a beat under her lead. If anything, it moved sharper, cleaner. The view stretched across the Hudson, all lit up and still. You could hear traffic below, but up there, it felt like the city was holding its breath. Russell showed up late. Same smooth stride, same tailored coat. But this time, he let Jen lead the conversation. That said more than any headline. He raised his glass halfway through dessert. "To the quiet men who know exactly when to strike," he said. No wink, no grin, just truth. I didn't need a reply, just lifted my glass. Courtney squeezed my hand under the table. First time in a long time, she looked relaxed, like the war had finally passed and we were still standing. Jen cleared her throat. "I've got news," she said, setting her fork down. "I'm getting married." Russell actually smiled for real that time. "Finally found a partner worth the bet?" "Not a bet," she said. "Not a strategy. He teaches literature at NYU, couldn't care less about capital markets." That got a laugh from the table. The wedding was small, on a vineyard outside Hudson. No big guest list, no stage photos. Just vows, sunlight, and people who meant it. Courtney and I danced slow under the string lights. No music cues, no fake smiles. She leaned in close. "You still think about it?" "Sometimes," I said, "but not with bitterness, not with heat." Back home, I kept the postcard framed in my office, right above my bookshelf. Not to show off, not to relive it, to remember. Marlene, mid-toast. World still intact, for about 5 more seconds. Some people thought power meant shouting loud, making moves in daylight, flashy wins, fast exits. But they never got it. Power wasn't noise. It was timing, leverage, and knowing exactly when to walk away, when you'd already won.